Hello, and welcome back to Behind the Post. My next guest is a marketing communication professional with over 7 years of proven success in digital marketing in the public sector. She has developed an award-winning digital marketing campaigns with the cities of Los Angeles and Sunnyvale in California, Missouri City in Texas, and the SLE Lupus Foundation in New York. Before joining Tyler Technologies, she served as the social media project manager for the city of Los Angeles. In this role, she leveraged social insights, analytics, and trends to drive digital marketing strategy, cultivate new audiences, and support retention efforts. Without further ado, please welcome to the show, Heather Daniels, Senior Social Media Specialist at Tyler Technologies. Heather, are you ready to go behind the post with me?
I am. Let's rock.
Amazing. Let's do it. So before we get into it, I know I mentioned a little bit of your background in the intro, but I would love if you could give just a brief overview of your professional journey and how you found yourself today as the senior social media specialist at Tyler Technologies.
All right. So I am the senior social media specialist for Tyler. And in my role, I provide a strategic direction, right, for organic and paid efforts. And I manage Tyler's distinct voice across all of our social channels. Prior to Tyler, I worked in various marketing communications roles in nonprofit, academia, oil and gas. I was even a freelance web designer at some point in my past
Wow.
life. Yeah, designing custom WordPress websites. So I would honestly say, though, in the last 10 years, though, my career has really been in the public sector, working with small and mid-sized cities like Missouri City and the city of Los Angeles. But honestly, no matter the industry I'm finding, no matter the size of the city, when it comes to digital marketing, right, everything that's under that umbrella, what matters the most is how you make people feel, right?
Mhm.
Whether or not you can communicate and make a connection, create content that resonates on a personal level, that leaves a lasting impression beyond one day, right? So they got to be able to remember you tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then, just transitioning from the public sector to B2B was natural for me, especially for Tyler, because Tyler Technologies exclusively serves the public sector.
hmm Wow. Well, you have quite the background, and I love what you just mentioned in there about making a lasting impact. And I'm sure we'll get back to that. But before then, could you just share a little bit about Tyler Technologies and who you guys are and what you do for anyone listening in that might not have heard of Tyler before?
Yeah, so Tyler Technologies provides integrated software and technology services that empowers local, state, and federal entities to become more efficient and to connect more transparently with their constituents and with themselves, right? So we're really talking about connected communities.
Mm.
Um, in my role, I actually work closely with our business verticals to further develop our roadmap that identifies all of our industry pain points, our competitive offerings, and all of that wonderful stuff. But I'm also part of the larger proactive media team, right? So a lot of my daily objectives are very top of funnel driven, but it's really a lot of time focused on, again, creating that relevant content, that those experiences, right? Those social media experiences that reinforce our purpose, our values, content that increases brand affinity, advocacy, all those good things, right?
Mhm.
Value driven content, value based content that helps tell the unique narrative that is the Tyler's brand.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I want to get into that a little bit more, and we haven't discussed regulated industries on this show before, so I'm very eager to get into it. And depending on what the organization is, we all use social for different things. Maybe it's lead gen, maybe it's community, maybe it's brand awareness. So for you at Tyler Technologies, how do you approach social strategy?
That's a great question. So for Tyler and a small segment of Tyler's clients, the General Data Protection Regulation, or the GDPR, right? That's a mouthful, does apply. But I'd say this: regardless of industry, like you said, there's a benefit of having a social media strategy
Mhm.
that considers things like social listening and monitoring, definitely. Um, Most people believe what they read online anyway, so a reputation management plan should be a part of your strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Crisis communication plan, right? We know that it's not if, but when.
Yeah.
Employee advocacy programs, social media usage guidelines, right? So we can proactively control the narrative that is being told in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And also, just basic policies and procedures that we can use to document our process and also process improvement.
Mm, okay, makes sense. I definitely want to talk more about crisis management, maybe later on in the
Mhm.
show. But one thing I really like to get very tactical and granular on this show so that any fellow social media manager or any social media professional can kind of walk away and implement what they've learned. So, for you as a social media professional in the public sector, how are you creating engaging content? You don't have to go into the specifics, but could you just share like a handful of tips and maybe the best practices that you are using on the post level day to day to create engaging content and sort of foster that community?
You know what? I'll do you one even better, right? So I talk about this a lot um, in my past life when I did work in the public sector, and it does apply a lot of times in my role with Tyler. I'm going to give you my top 5 mistakes that I
Mm.
see all the time in the public sector, right? So I may or may not have done these in the past. I don't know, but this is like real life experience here, right? So I'd say first one, hands down, is not targeting your core audience, right?
Mhm.
So without a targeted approach to social media marketing, your efforts are frustrating, they're fruitless, it's impossible to grow your base and
Mhm.
your brand's awareness if you don't have an understanding of who it is that you're actually talking to online, right?
Yeah.
Um, Two would definitely be posting the same content across all platforms, right?
Mhm.
What works well on one platform may not necessarily work well on the other, right? So
Yep.
content should always be fresh, unique, and apply to the platforms you're posting on, right? So you can always make simple changes. I'm not saying that you have to reinvent the wheel here. You can change your copy, you can
Mhm.
change your CTA, you can
Yeah.
change your hashtags, right? Hashtags don't flow effortlessly on all of our platforms. So
Mhm.
it's definitely something to keep in mind. Uh, Three, I would definitely say not responding to comments in a timely manner,
Mhm.
right? This will make or break you. Not responding creates, this optic that you ignore your users. The feeling of being ignored can quickly snowball into a crisis management, right? A crisis management situation. So it's definitely something you want to avoid. Respond to all comments, even the negative ones, right? Uh,
Mhm.
or not posting enough or posting too much, right? So this is about consistency and frequency. Striking that balance between being informative and being annoying is tricky, right? So your content schedule is going to be your BFF. Definitely, you want to make sure that you take your top performing content and incorporate it into your evergreen schedule, right? Especially if it did really well.
Mhm.
Five, using branded content only, right? How many times have we seen this? You want to find ways to incorporate things like UGC, user generated content,
Mhm.
videos, GIFs, quotes of the day, memes, if your industry allows it, right? So I think you don't want to just make it about you and your business. Um, a rule of a third is what I find works really, really well, not just in the public sector, but just period, right? So a third, social engagement, right? I love polls on LinkedIn, they're great. A third of sharing industry or partner content or that UGC, and then another third of original content, right? Blogs, white papers, things that are, can be tangible in that sense. So I'd also say that I see a lot, you want to write for social, right?
Mhm.
You don't want to just repurpose your website copy or your printed materials copy. You want to write short form content, right? The nature of short form content is to be short and concise. So, right? Hashtag TLDR, too long didn't read, sum it up.
Yeah. Well, I think everything you just said is so spot on, and I can totally agree with. I want to come back to the first thing that you said, knowing your target audience. I have a question about new social media managers or just switching into a new role, maybe in a different industry. This is something that I felt like I struggled with was getting to know a community that I didn't create because I feel like it's very different when you're there from the start. You've created that community, you know their pain points. So, do you have any tips for someone who's starting a new role and needs to understand their audience on that deep level? What are a few things that they can do to really like grasp their pain points and truly understand?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely start with a social media audit. I know that sounds very technical, but it does give you at least a starting point where you can understand where you've been. So
Hmm.
you have a better understanding of where you need to go.
Yeah.
You can also use your personal social media to join, a lot of these communities, a lot of these groups. Um, on LinkedIn, on Facebook as well, to see it from a different lens, right? So that
Mhm.
you're not being hindered by your organizational lens, that you can see it
Yeah.
for what it truly is. And then also, I would say look to trends. What's trending in that industry or what's trending in that community?
Hmm. Yeah, thank you. That's great advice. Yeah, and everything else you just listed, I totally agree with, especially when it comes to changing the content across all networks. First of all, I think as working in the social media industry, you are so pressed for time and content creation is extremely time consuming. So I think it's so important that you are stretching that content as far as you can, but also making sure that you are changing it so it aligns with each network, or else it's just not going to land the right way. And every audience on each network is a little different. So I think that is such a great tip as well.
Yeah.
So I know crisis management is a part of your role, and I wanted to spend a little time talking about this because I think every social media manager or social media professional needs to have a grasp on this. So, in your opinion, what should social media professionals already have in place before a crisis happens? Cross our fingers here, so none happen. But what should we already have in place?
Yeah, great question. I think if you borrow from like the 5 C's of crisis communications from public relations, or if you look at emergency management plans, right? The very first step is definitely to devise a plan that clearly defines what a crisis is. What does a crisis mean for you in your industry? And a plan that also outlines the who's who and who's doing what, right?
Mhm.
What does your crisis team consist of? It may consist of legal, if you have a corporate communications component, definitely HR, yes, IT, yes, right? You want to get as many eyes on a potential crisis because it affects your entire business. So you would also need to have an approval process, right?
Mhm.
We call it at Tyler a SSOE, or a second set of eyes, but you really need, more than one person who's going to validate the message that's going out, right?
Mhm.
You want to also prepare for any scenario, right, that can occur. If
Mhm.
you can, run live scenarios, right? Be in the business of always being ready.
Mhm.
Practice for anything that can come your way, and also practice being quick and nimble,
Mhm.
right? You should already be in a good habit of responding to comments and messages, within an hour anyway. See if you can do it a little bit quicker. And then also, you want to participate in active listening and monitoring, both on social, traditional, and off of social, right? So, what do I mean by that? So, we have things like Reddit, Glassdoor, Google My Business, and then a big one for the public sector, Nextdoor, right? No relation to Glassdoor, but that is another platform that you want to keep your eyes
Yeah.
on. And yeah, and then lastly, evaluate your crisis plan annually and then make improvements.
Okay. That's very helpful. especially if you have maybe a smaller team. Maybe you don't even have like a huge legal team. I think it's always important to plan ahead and actually have a plan. And that second set of eyes is something that I personally do on all of my social media content. I always have someone look it over before it goes out because we do cater to different cultures and different areas across the world. And, you never know how something's going to be taken. And it's always helpful to have that second set of eyes. But say something does happen, you have a crisis. What are those best practices that you keep in your back pocket when something is going wrong and you have to manage it?
Yeah, honestly, it's all about mitigating your risks. You want to get in front of it before it turns into something else, right? So that's what I'm saying, that active monitoring,
Mhm.
active listening. You want to actually just kind of triage, what's going on. You want to do your own sort of operating here, assess the situation, decide what level of crisis it is, who needs to be involved, who needs to be notified, and then respond as quickly as possible, and then continue to monitor, should that situation arise again or become something else.
Mhm. Okay, awesome. Makes sense. Well, we are nearing the end of the show here, and we've talked about so many incredible things, and you've had so many incredible insights. But I have one last question for you. This is a question that I ask all of my guests, and I'm very interested to know your answer. And that is, what is one thing you wish your colleagues in other departments knew about social media?
There are probably several things, but I
Let's
think
hear
the
them
thing that's on
all.
the top of my mind, yeah, the thing that's on the top of my mind is probably it's okay not to be polished,
Mm,
right? So video doesn't have to spend hours and hours in brand, in production, to make an impact.
mm,
Stock images and even staged photos, miss the mark a lot of times. They just don't make meaningful connections. That it's okay to be natural. It's okay to go to events and trade shows and take a few seconds of video on your iPhone. It's okay to go live on Instagram. It's okay to go live on Facebook and not be prepared or have,
mm.
words in front of you. It's
Yeah.
okay. We're human.
Hmm. We are human, and I feel like kids so easily get technical and really just talk jargon all day, but that's not what lands at the end of the day. And I actually saw a post on LinkedIn the other day talking about how your video does not need to be super polished, and videos that are just quickly taken on an iPhone just land so much more because it's a human on the other end. It's more relaxed and you just feel more connected to that brand because you feel like you know that person a little more because it is more relaxed. And it's actually something that we did last year. We were so tired of stock photos. We were seeing them all over, and it's just
Mhm.
not personalized. Like, it just doesn't make you have that warm fuzzy feeling like you know the brand. So we actually had an ebook going out geared towards social media managers and social media practitioners. So we had a little photo shoot, and they put me on the cover to make it be more personalized. So I
Yeah,
think it's those small little touches like that they're not huge, but they make such a bigger impact because you do feel that much more connected to that brand. So I think everyone should try to do that, those little small tweaks here and there, and they really will make a big difference.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Totally agree.
100%. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the show. I think that we've covered so much, and I've definitely learned a lot, especially about crisis communication. And now I know that everyone listening in needs to have a plan so we can get ahead of everything before it gets to that point. So thank you so much for joining me behind the post.
Thank you for having me.